Okay, this is the Cert 4 Trainer and Assessor Portfolio 1, Assessment 1, Session 1. In this training video we're going to be doing how to fill out a safe work method statement. It's a mandatory document by Work Health and Safety to identify hazards in the workplace and construction. This is Fiona, my partner, and my name is Scott White. I'm the trainer, she's the learner. Fiona's background is in business admin. She has expressed to me in the past about coming to work in the mines because it's such good money, and to work as a spotter because there's quite a lot of females entering the industry now, and they're encouraging females to enter the industry. So yeah, she's expressed her interest in the past about becoming a spotter or a confined space entry spotter. So I just set up this scenario with a hypothetical situation in a mining construction situation where a safe work method statement is required. And this video is being filmed at our apartment in the Gold Coast, and we've done a hazard assessment of the area, and point out to Fiona that we have smoke hazards, smoke alarm in the building. We've got fire extinguishers in the stairwell, and we have emergency exits. We also have fire doors in place and emergency exit signs. And in case of an emergency, we'll both exit the building together, and we'll meet on the corner out the front there and wait for emergency services. In the case of an emergency situation, that's our evacuation procedure. Okay, and so we'll begin by just having a look at the safe work method statement. So in this training session, we're going to not only fill out a safe work method statement, how to create one, and what kind of hazards to identify when filling out a safe work method statement, and the correct the tasks involved, how to break down tasks, and be accurate but also simplify things as much as possible, but still cover the entire task at hand for the safe work method statement. Now, safe work method statements are mandatory by law, as in hazard identification in the workplace. To keep workers safe, they have to be done by everyone. It's a legal document, safe work method statement. You've also got other hazard identification documents like a JHA, and which is a job hazard analysis, but that's optional and that's more task specific. And like the SWMS covers the entire sort of job scope, and then if you've got specific tasks that are sort of unique or require certain equipment and stuff, you can fill out a JHA. And you also have Take 5 forms, which is a step back 5x5 form. Is when you that's when you begin a task, or you come back from a break, or a situation changes in your task, and that's just immediate hazard identification. I take step back 5x5. But this one is a safe work method statement. So what we'll do, we'll break down the cover page, and this is a template I've got from UGL, my employer. And the cover page is all identifies the critical hazards it could be exposed to. This is UGL's policies and procedures to identify these critical hazards. These are critical hazards that can inflict serious harm or damage to someone. So they have to be identified and addressed. And these are ones usually requiring a permit. And so when you fill out one of these, you have to fill out all the information. I'll just get a pen. So in this situation, we'll fill out a safe work method statement for a hypothetical situation where we're going to bring in a crane and an EWP and a forklift and a truck to a work site to install a piece of structural steel. And so we'll need all those bits of mobile plant and equipment. So we'll just do it for that hypothetical situation, which is very common. And so we'll run you have to put the site, the project name. We'll say where I was just working as Toorong Power Station. You can fill that in if you like. I'll let you fill it in as we go, and then so you get the practice. So for Toorong Power Station, we'll do, and the work activity is install structural steel. Next one over, install structural steel. Do you want something to lean on over there?
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, it's better putting that on. Install structural steel. The workplace location, Toorong Power Station. The date of development review is today's date, the 12th. Now the SWMS number, that has to be done by the site manager. and administration. They'll come up with a number for there. The reference number there. So we've got company name and ABN. You can write UGL in there. I'm not sure of the ABN. We can fill that in later. And the UGL site manager. You can write who was the site manager? What's his name? Daryl Cash. You can write Daryl Cash. He was just my recent one. Daryl Cash. You don't need the address, so he'll put his contact phone number and the supervisor responsible for this work activity. You can put my supervisor Scott Nugent, SCOTT. Nugent, yep. And his contact phone number, we don't need that. And then so you have to assess the situation, the circumstance, and identify all the critical hazards. So when you move down to this next part, these are UGL's policies for identifying critical hazards in the workplace. And these are the ones that usually require a permit for. And so the reason we fill out this document and you need the site manager's approval, because the site manager is aware of all the activities that are happening in their area that they look after. So there might be activities going on levels above you or around you that might impact your workspace. So they need to be signed off with everything and considered in this whole situation for approval for your task. But it's not going to put you at harm or put another person at harm that might be working in that area. So that's why you need permits and permit numbers to take place for high risk work, because permits just cover the specific hazard and they address the specific hazard and administer controls for that activity. So for what we'll be doing down here for the critical tasks, we'll be doing work at heights. You can tick that one, and operation of mobile plant, and we'll be doing cranes and lifting. Yep. And then we're not working with any managing traffic. You can do managing traffic, and that should be it. And then so after you identify the critical risks, these are the high risk work construction sections underneath here where a permit might be required. So we'll be working at height over 2 meters, so we'll need a work and height permit underneath the first one. And the next one is explosives, chemical, no. Working at energized equipment, no. Temporary load bearing support or structural alterations. Yeah, structural alterations, you can put that in, because we'll be installing a piece of structural steel.
Mm-hmm. So the temporary
replacing and installing. Yep. Work on adjacent road, no. Work in an area of movement of mobile plant movement or work in an area of movement of mobile plant. Yep. Mm-hmm. Extreme temperatures, no. Okay, so the permits required, we need a work at height permit. And that's it. Okay, and list any hazardous substances. We've been to know hazardous substances, you can leave that blank. List specific personal protective equipment. So you can write the personal protective equipment is just your standard mine site. So long sleeve, PPE, long sleeve shirts, long sleeve trousers. You can write long sleeve shirt, long sleeve trousers. A hard hat. You can fit all that in there. Hard hat, boots, steel cap boots have to be. Boots. Get that in the top there, there's room. Steel cap boots, glasses and gloves. Yep. And what measures are in place to monitor compliance with SWIMS? Implementation of audits. So we'll tick the first box there. Workplace inspections are always ticked. It's because that's workplace inspections is you inspecting your gear before and after use, you know, and your and equipment logbooks and checks for mobile plant. And so who's responsible for compliance with the SWIMS control measures? You can put me down, Scott White. I'll be the leading hand. I'll take the leading hand role for this position, and you can put my supervisor's name, Scott Nugent, as well. He'll be overseeing the activity as well. Supervisor Scott Nugent, that's great. Okay, so now that this is after we form up the work, the SWIMS or safe work method statement, after we fill it all out, we have to get the site manager to approve it, the activity, and he has to sign off on it, that he's acknowledged the activity and the date is going to be happening in time. And then, so we go over to the next page. So, when you break down a safe work method statement, you have to, the main goal of it is to identify all the hazards in the workplace and address those hazards and mitigate them with controls and implementing controls. So when it's mandatory by work health and safety is identifying hazards in the workplace, and when you do high risk tickets, we implement a system called hierarchical controls, which is elimination, substitution, engineering, administration, or PPE controls. And elimination being the best one, the strongest one to eliminate hazards, because it just removes them from the context straight away. And then if you can substitute it, you can take a substitution example is taking something that's high risk and implementing something that's less risky. So substitution might be using like a power store at height. Instead of doing it the power store at height, you can do all your work in the ground. So it eliminates the work well, that's more of an elimination control. But substitution would be like instead of using a dangerous tool, you could substitute it for a less dangerous tool. You know what I mean? And then engineering controls. Engineering can be that's one. Instead of like doing the work at height, you do as much work as you can on the ground. That's another good one. That eliminates the work at the height, but that's an engineering control where we can engineer the process differently. Do you know what I mean? Instead of doing it doing it at height, you do it on the ground. And then an administration control is getting all licensed and experienced staff. That's going to be an admin control, and well-trained staff. And it also can be having up-to-date inspection checks and on the gear. And then PPE is the last one, and that can be like implementing dust masks and task-specific PPE controls. But usually on the mine sites, it's always gloves, glasses, and hard hats. And that's a pretty good PPE control in itself. But for specific tasks, you can apply different kinds of gloves, raiding gloves, different face shields for that specific task. So when you're identifying hazards with the hierarchy controls, you have to identify. You want to identify from the top down. That's the method to do it. So you start with the very top. You start with the weather. You can start with power lines. You start with structure. You start with trees, and you work your way down. So you've got mobile plant and anything sort of overhead. You start with overhead hazards, and then you can come down to eyesight, which would be like people. You got mobile plant, and you've got structures. Containers, and then you work out further lower. You've got things on the ground, housekeeping. If you've got leads there, pallets on the ground. You know what I mean? Anything that's going to interfere with traffic and emergency access and egress areas. And then you go underground too, because when you break it down, you go from top to bottom, and you always helps you to remember to consider underground services, which could be like trenches or cables or plumbing or anything like that, where could be impacted by bringing a mobile plant on them. And soil, that includes soil ratings and capacities. Like if you're setting up a crane on soft soil, there might not be anything under there, but it's still, the crane might sink or something and jeopardize the safety of the lift. So they have to be consulted with your engineer for an engineer soil reports and stuff and things like that. Engineer the load bearing capacity of the ground, which is engineer will know at the location of the site, or you might have to organise them yourself, and then an engineer's report for the load bearing capacity of the ground. So that's the best way to do it. If you're going to assess hazards, is your top down approach, and then you cover everything. It's a good natural way to do it. So when you're breaking down a swim into tasks, the first task involved, you want to do it simplified, but generally it's always the same. For a JHA or a SWIMS document, it's always 4 or 5 steps, and that is mob gear to site, set up gear, do the task, pack up gear, demob gear. So you want to kind of simplify. That covers everything, but keep it simple. You don't need to go on too much information and cause confusion. We want it to be simplified as much as possible. So the first one we'll do, you can write down there, is what are the tasks involved, and we'll write mob gear to site, or mobilise gear to site.
Immobilise?
Mobilise,
Oh,
HSM. Mobilise gear to site, yep. Okay, so, and under there you just write a dash, mobile plant, cranes.
Comma?
Yeah, mobile plant, cranes, EWP, and tools. So you can take up as much room. The more hazards you list, the better, because the more accurate you're being, and the more consideration you've done. And when you're filling out a swims, you should always do it with the work crew involved, the entire work crew that's involved in the activity, because everyone will have different roles and they'll have identified different hazards that they're exposed to. And when you work together and you plan the task from everyone's perspective, it's done the safest, and no one's left out, and no one so they might not be aware of a hazard that's been identified. So, but for the first hazard that we'll identify, moving the gear to site, we'll break it down top to bottom if the weather's good. So you can write inclement weather or weather conditions. Inclement weather or weather conditions, it's fine. And then we'll just, before we go through all the hazards, we'll just identify a control measure. So just monitor weather conditions on the day. And so, because we're bringing in a large piece of equipment like a crane and an EWP, the crane will come in driving itself, but the EWP will come in on a truck, and then the tools will be on the truck as well. So, to other hazards to be involved, there will be structures. You can write, so for the next hazard, you can write it in that same box, but just underneath it, leave room, you can write it over here. Mm-hmm. So you can write, the next one will be structures, and you can write dash people, and then the control for that will be spotters and safe you can write spotters and safe distances. So when you're spotting, you always want to I always allow safe distances, you know what I mean, just in case there's an accident or something happens, or something's out of control, at least you've got a buffer zone, you know what I mean, between structures. So okay, that's and then so more hazards. We'll do a couple of these boxes for moving to site. So the next one you can do underground services. So you're bringing a crane in. A crane can weigh 20 tons, and then you've got to bring it in here. So underground services is a hazard. Yep. And then the controls you could write contact site engineer. Yep, for underground services or soil reports, underground services and soil reports, because you're setting up a crane, and a crane's a heavy piece of equipment, once it's carrying a load as well. Yep, underground services, and then you've just got, you can put housekeeping in there as well. Housekeeping, so pallets and all that, and the controls. Oh, so you could write, housekeeping is control, so the hazard would be pallets and messy worksite, and then housekeeping is over there, so I can cross it out. Yep, and then just write, so messy worksite, unorganised messy worksite. In case a previous contractor's been there, or work crew, and they've not, you have to clear the space for the crane.
Yep.
Organise everything. Yep.
So housekeeping.
Yeah, housekeeping, just general housekeeping. General housekeeping. Yep. Okay, good. Okay, so the next step in the task will be set up gear. So you can write over here, the task was set up crane, set up equipment, including mobile plant and tools. Okay. So the hazards for setting up equipment, once you break them down again, so if you're going to set up your crane, you want to set it up in a safe area, not too close to structures, not under structures, not near power lines, and you want to make sure the weather's good. So you just go. You could write the hazard could be you write weather conditions, and the control would be monitor conditions. Because wind impact on a crane lift is quite significant. So the crane has to shut down after 17. I think it's 17 kilometres of wind per hour, and it doesn't take much to make a lift unsafe. So wind conditions, we'll mention that. So this is for when you write a thoroughly like this. Everyone involved in the activity learns about all the hazards that everyone else has to be aware of, including the crane operator, from spotters to crane operators. So that can be the first hazard we'll identify. And the next one is you can write power lines. Power lines.
In this separate.
Yeah, the next hazard. Yeah, for the same task. Yeah, power lines and structures. Because we'll be setting up an EWP and crane, so we want to make sure that it's safe distances from the power lines and structures. So yeah, you're right. What are the controls? We can write safe distances. Yep, and spotters. Yep. And then the other things to set up. So when you're doing it, you want there could be other work crews and stuff that aren't aware of what's happening, taking place. So you want to put, when you're setting up, you have to set up exclusion zones. So you write, we'll set up in that next, write it under here. Well, that's still setting up equipment. So write exclusion zones and signage. So we'll have to make an exclusion zone around our work zone and a drop zone. So exclusion zones and signage, and so you want to write set up barricades, hard danger tape, set up barricades, danger tape, and information tags. Barricading is a essential requirement for work health and safety regulations, and signage and exclusion zones. It's a mitigating control for hazards, so they're compulsory on mine sites and construction sites. So the next one is exclusion zones and signage. Yep, that's for the hazards. That's okay. You can write exclusion zones for people, but that's okay. That the hazard will be people. You want to just write people on top of that? Because the controls is the exclusion zones. Yep. So the next page over, you can stick over with another one. We'll keep going on this one because this is the main task. So you want to film out. That's where the body of work will be done. So we want to control. We make a note of all the hazards that we could face.
Yep.
So if when we're setting up equipment, we've got people, and then you've got, so manual handling is involved. You can write, so just write continued, set up equipment. Continued. That is the task still. Continued, set up equipment. So what are the hazards and risks? You can write manual handling, and you can write pinch points are hazards. Pinch points, getting your hand caught in things and setting up tools and stuff. Pinch points, sure. Manual handling, pinch points, crush zones. Crush zones, trip hazards. Yep, and then so the control measures we can have here is PPE, gloves, eyes on task, fit for work. Fit for work is just well hydrated, well rested. You don't have to put all that in, but fit for work is generally referred to as well hydrated, well rested.
DNA?
And just good night's sleep. Yeah, you do DNA testing, but that's all part of the site requirements. Not really part of the work requirements, which is the SWIMS covers. So for crush zones, you'll have you can also put spotters in here. You can use the 2 boxes down there if you like, just for that hazard. So spotters, you can keep filling up this one. Spotters is another thing we'll use when setting up equipment, and safe distances. And general housekeeping. And something else you can put in here, hazards, is other workers. You can start down here if you want. Other work crews. Other work crews is good because it's a really underrated topic. But just communicating well with other work crews so they know what's happening, what's taking place, because they don't have a clue. Other people are always focused on what they're doing in the workplace, and they're unaware of other things happening around them. So good communication is very essential. So you can write good communication with work crews. And it's classified as simultaneous operations, but it's referred to as SimOps. It's the abbreviation. Just write SimOps. SimOps. So that's where you want to coordinate in with other work crews in the area. There might be a priority job, and you might be setting up to do your job, but something takes priority or is more important or is more high risk, and just working in with other crews is a good hazard control. So other work crews, set up equipment, that's pretty good. Just trying to think about can you think of any other hazards that could be involved in setting up equipment we haven't mentioned there?
I already talked about trips. Yeah.
Trip hazards, we put general housekeeping, you can write organised materials in there if you like. Organising materials, just kind of the same thing, but it's good if you can be as specific as possible. Organising materials, yeah, in a good, safe place. Setting up equipment, we've got manual handling, pinch points, crush zones, trip hazards.
What about things like like you were telling me about the water? You know, when the guy cracked open the thing accidentally with the water spouting everywhere.
Oh, with the Franna setting up,
that kind of like emergency thing.
Well, that was because there was another spotter. There was another spotter in place when they had like a hydrant on site, and the Franna backed into it. But everyone, in most policies, procedures for Franna mobile cranes on site, is to always have a spotter when reversing.
Oh, I'm thinking more environmental factors.
Yeah, environmental factors is a good one to consider. So you can write that in there.
Floods and fire and...
Well, that's more like weather conditions.
Oh,
but
yeah,
environmental policies at work, you have to have an environmental management system, and that'll involve having spill kits on site. So you could have what are the hazards, just because, and there's a lot of if you're not using hazard materials, usually you have to have if you're using mobile plant or anything that runs on diesel or oil that requires the toxic substances, and you have to have a spill kit on site. So you could have hazard risks is mobile plant malfunction. That's a good one because it's a requirement to have spill kits on site, and usually work health and safety and the site will organise them anyway for each job front. So mobile plant malfunction, and you can have spill kits. And that's good to know, because when you sit down with a crew and you do your safe work method statement, it's good for everyone to know where the spill kit is, because in an emergency you have to act quickly for that. So you can write spill kit location, spill kit locations. And let's elaborate further on that. So in mobile plant malfunction, you could also have injury to workers.
I was just going to say, what about someone having a heart attack? Would that come under fit for work?
That is fit for work, but I think that in the policies and procedures, you have to contact work health and safety, the site supervisor, the work health and safety supervisor. But you definitely put it as a hazard in here, is you could have injury to workers. If there's an injury to workers, and the controls will be rescue plans, and first aid kits, first aid locations. Yep, and you can put slash,
DFib.
and eye wash stations. Yeah, they'll have all the site safety supervisor will have I'll have a nurse on site with a full medical room. But that organising all that and working out those locations is spot on. That's exactly what you need to do. Especially when you're having toolbox talks before you do your task, is knowing where all those locations are set, ready to go, and that's the best way to do it. The best procedure.
And emergency evacuation points?
And make emergency evacuation points, yes, you can put that in there as well. So if you're doing the hazards and risks, so in the event of emergency, you can put emergency, in the event of emergency, emergency evacuation points and procedures. Emergency evacuation points and procedures. Yep. So everyone in the work crew knows.
Yeah.
Yep. That's great. And what other hazards involved? Okay, that's to set up equipment. Let's move on to the task next. That's very thorough. That's good. So the next task, we'll just start on this bottom one. So the next task involved will be performing the task. Performing the task, and then underneath it, right, the task will be installing structural steel. Installing structural steel. Structural steel with crane. Yep. You put in and EWP in there, so that's, yep, and EWP, perfect. Okay, so the hazards, the first thing the hazard will be for the task will be a suspended load. Suspended loads, yep. And because there'll be suspended loads at the mobile plant, that'll require a permit, so you can write the control will be a site permit. And okay, and another control you can do is definitely exclusion zones, signage, inspect equipment, inspect rigging equipment before the lift. So you inspect equipment before and after. Just write inspect equipment. Yep. Check safety tags, check ratings, equipment ratings. Ratings, yep, and safety tags. In mine sites, equipment has to be checked and tagged every 3 months, and they run off a system called Rugby, or RGBY. And so every 3 months, which is January, February, March, Rugby stands for red, green, blue, yellow. So after 3 months, after January, February, March is red, and then it goes to green, which is April, May, June, and then July, August, September is blue, and then October, November, December is yellow. So if you've every 3 months you have to check your gear and then change the colour of your tags, so you know what month you're in, you know if your gear needs to be inspected. So you can check all the colour, that's what that refers to when it says check all tags, safety tags, make sure it's all been inspected and it's up to date with the inspections. So this is the body of work here, so we'll be quite thorough with this one. This is performing the task. So suspended loads, that's a big one. You know how to stand on suspended loads, so you can we'll keep going with suspended loads controls. We'll do, you can just write continue performing the task. Go to the page, so it's kept in order. Performing the task, and then write the hazard against suspended loads. And more controls, you can put controllers taglines.
Do you have to write out these every time, or can you type it?
No, it has to be written out every time, handwritten. Taglines for the load, yep. And then dash spotters, you'll have spotters there. And you'll have licensed workers. And we'll have communication, two-way radios. That will be me in the elevator work platform with a radio communicating with the crane operator, and the spotter will have one as well. We'll all be on the same channel. So you have communication, two-way radios, spotters. Okay, suspended loads. What other risks? Okay, so it'll be with suspended loads. There'll be crush zones and pinch points. So we want to you can write for suspended loads, because when we're installing, when we get close to where it's got to go, getting your hands in there and bolting the piece of steel off. It can be crush zones and pinch points. You can put that as a hazard. Crush zones and pinch points with the load, shifting the load. Yep. And the controls can be safe speeds, safe distances. Yep. Gloves. Yep. And okay, that'll cover the crush zones. The next one we'll do, because there'll be mobile plane involved. So the next hazards we'll use is mobile plane. And you can write dash EWPs and cranes. But we'll address EWPs first. Okay, so EWPs will have elevated work platforms, will have logbook and inspection controls to make sure it's all functioning properly. We'll do the logbook and pre-starts. Logbook and pre-start inspection. And that is just pre-starting and checking that all the controls work. Logbook and pre-start inspections, yep. For the EWP, we'll do licensed operator. Okay, and then working in the basket, if we're working with the hands outside the basket, so we'll need tool lanyards.
Yep.
Yep, what we can put in there, so after you do mobile plane EWPs, for the hazard you can do dropped objects. Just write dropped objects in the hazard as well, dropped objects. Yep. And the control for them is tool lanyards. Yep, tool lanyards, oh you've already put that in there, but you can write, okay, just carry on with that and write tool bags as well. Store all your bags, that's housekeeping inside the basket, so all your tools go in a neat place. So tool bags, tool lanyards, and dropped objects is also, so when you lift the piece of steel up, just inspect it, there's no nuts or washers sitting on the load, and because they can become unstable fall. So you write inspect the load, inspect the load, inspect the load before lift. So you want to, when in the process of this is thinking through the task from beginning to end, and everything you're going to encounter along the way that could cause harm to you, and then trying to eliminate the harm. So that's the process we're going through now. So, okay, so mobile plane, so we'll do use of the crane for performing the task.
Before?
No, sorry, just use of the crane for performing the task, I mean, yeah. So use of the crane for performing the task. You don't have to write it in, but that's okay. So with cranes, with the lifting, you deal with lots of different forces involved. So you want to do with the cranes, make sure there have been pre-start checks, logbook and pre-start checks. Make sure the crane is performing at its safe working capacity. So logbook, pre-start checks, licensed competent operator, licensed competent operator.
Sorry. Oh, wow.
Half an hour.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we won't get
40
to it.
minutes now.
Oh, are we? Okay, we'll just.
Do you want to check that's still actually gone? Because sometimes I've videoed before and it actually turns off if you leave it too long.
Yeah, it's still going.
Still going.
Okay, but we won't be doing too much longer. Okay, so so use of the crane, licensed competent operator, and communication radio checks. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's performing the task. So the task, so installing the structural steel, I've taken up my tools and my bolts with me, and I've bolted off the steel. I've unhooked the crane and sent the crane back down, and the crane operator has packed up his boom now, and the basket is on the ground. So the next step from there will be packing up equipment and cleaning up. So let's say the piece of steel we installed came on a truck and it came on a pallet, and it was tied, had ties down, straps and everything on there. So we'll clean up all that rubbish into the allocated recycling bins, so the site bins. So the next task we'll clean up and pack up gear. Here's the next task. Clean up and pack up gear. And so the hazards involved there, it's just trip hazards. You can write other people, other workers. Other workers is more specific. Other workers, and so for trip hazards, you can write housekeeping. So housekeeping comes into play. And just for this one, this hazard as well, for this task, you can also write mobile plant interactions. Mobile plant interactions. Because that's when you have rubbish on the ground, or if you have pallets and stuff like that, and there'll be a site forklift, and he might come into our exclusion zone and pick up pallets and pick up rubbish, or we'll get one of our guys with the forklift to remove all the rubbish as well. And so housekeeping, and then rubbish removal to allocated bins. Recycling and environmental management is really important in mining and construction these days. So putting the rubbish in the allocated bins is very important. Mobile plant interactions, cleaning up gear, and you can also write a control there as positive comms, POSCOMs or good comms. POSCOMs is a term commonly used. POSCOMs or good comms with all the work crew. Make sure everyone's on the same page with everything. Clean up, pack up, and you can do. Let's do one more to be thorough, and just do check mobile plant for fluid leaks. Check mobile plant for fluid leaks or spills. Fluid leaks or spills. Yep.
Yeah, leaks is fine.
Yeah, that's great. And then you can write administer spill kit. That's if it's the machine's been dripping oil or something like that, it's good to clean all that up. Someone doesn't slip on it later. Okay, and then the last task in the safe work method statement is, I'll give you what it is demob gear from site. Demob gear from site.
Is that continued?
No, that's a new task.
Oh.
So the last task is demob gear, demobilize, whatever. Yeah, demob gear, that's fine.
From
site. So what you want to do, so the crane doesn't get damaged, or you want to put it in a safe place, so you can write, the hazard will be, with demob gear from site, okay, mobile plant interactions. So the mobile plant interactions, so you can write underneath there, moving crane to a laydown area. You want to move the crane out of the way and the EWP out of the way into a laydown area. So moving crane moving crane and EWP to laydown area. They might be on the side there waiting for a truck to come and collect the EWP. You just want to keep it away because it's dusty and dirty in the environment. You want to just put it out of the way too. Now for the controls, it's just to move mobile plant to laydown areas. Okay, yep, and then you've got, so what the hazards there is mobile plant interactions. You've got it there, so let's put more hazards in here. Just write people control, so exclusion zones. You can write, in the hazard there, people or workers. People is more general because if you're working in a construction and you're dealing with the public in like civil construction stuff, so people classifies as workers and the public. So control measure, you want to write exclusion zones, spotters, POSCOMs, exclusion zones, spotters, good communication. So that it refers to loading tools back onto the truck. You know, you want to have a spotter there. You always have a spotter when using mobile plant, and then spotting and doing traffic management. So that covers demob gear, people, and housekeeping. So that's generally how you break it down. A safe work method statement into the stages, into the four or five essential stages, which is mob gear to site, setting up gear, performing the task, packing up and cleaning up equipment, and demobbing gear. That's the general steps in all documentation for hazard analysis. So once that's done, once we've finished doing the JHA, this is when you take it to the site supervisor and he'll look over it. And generally, no matter what you do, he's going to look at it and pick up something you haven't added, just to get you always thinking. So he's just not going to agree to it and sign it off. He'll always look at something and identify you haven't missed, and they love seeing you adding to them. You know, you adding them on the side. They love it. They want to see as much information as there as you can to show you considered everything, and it just shows that your mind's on. Is it more of an activity to keep your mind focused on the task, focus at the task at hand, because it's quite easily to get distracted out there and be considering it, because there's so much things going on in a construction workplace. So you'll have to take it to the site manager, and he'll assess everything, the document, and he'll sign off on it if he approves on it. And then the last page here is the sign-on. So this is a sign-on for everyone that's involved in the task, and they've reviewed the document and they're aware of all the hazards and the controls in place. Because this is a legal document. If something goes wrong here and someone's at fault, if someone's been negligent, it can be held in court as a legal document. And it has to show that you understand the task at hand, you're licensed and competent to perform the task, and that you understand the hazards involved and the risks that mitigated, the risks and controls that will be mitigated for the hazards. So anyone that is negligent can be held accountable. So that's the nature of high risk work. So everyone has to sign on here and then date it and print their name. And usually a swims can last for the duration of the whole job. So it can last a week or a month or a day. Depends on the length of the task or how long you want to set it for. And then if you have specific jobs involved in there, like you're installing, say you're doing a few lifts and you're installing structural steel, but one of your lifts is to install like a hazardous vessel with liquids in it. You need different tradesmen involved, like mechanical fitters, boiler makers, to install a motor or a pump or something in there. And then they have to put oil in there as well, and it's hazardous substances. That's when you can do a task-specific JHA, and that's when you all sit down and have a meeting about the specific task, and you break down all the hazards involved in that task, and you all come together and get your head around the whole situation.
Oh, yes. And after this has been signed off by the supervisor, where does it?
It becomes a legal document, and then it's always stored on the location of the site. They'll have a copy on file in the office. There'll be a copy in their office, and they'll be always stored at the location of the task. So they'll be inside the crane, it'll be inside a piece of equipment, or inside the toolbox, in a folder inside the toolbox. It has to be signed, so all workers can access it and refer to it and sign on every day. It has to be available on site. So if work health and safety come around, basically by law it has to be at the location. They will come down and they will ask you for where your safe work method statement is. Make sure everyone's signed on. Make sure everyone's aware of all their roles and responsibilities, all the hazards and all the controls in place. But it gets simplified after you've done it a lot of time. You understand the process, and it all sort of, because it's all hazard identification, it all sort of makes sense. It's all sensible. It all flows in a sensible order and a controlled manner. So it's all becomes second nature really easily. It's not really complicated. It's all about making things safer and making things easier to work with. So it all becomes second nature anyway in the end. But so that is how to fill out a safe work method statement. Do you have any questions? Anything you want to ask?
No, I think you answered all of my questions.
We're really pretty thorough. You're happy with that training? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.